Hello, Starlight, and welcome to BookWormEchoes. Whether you're returning or discovering this story for the first time, I'm so glad you're here. Now dim the lights, get comfortable, and let the story unfold. Tonight's story is The Innocent, Forbes, the Vampire Diaries fanfiction filled with secrets, grief, betrayal, family, and the darkness hidden beneath Mystic Falls. Before we begin, let's introduce the cast bringing these characters to life. Sparkles Lily Reinhardt as Katie Forbes plus Soulless Katie. Sparkles Candace King as Caroline Forbes. Sparkles Nina Dobrev as Elena Gilbert and Catherine Pierce. Sparkles Paul Wesley as Stefan Salvatore. Sparkles Ian Somerhalder as Damon Salvatore. Sparkles Chris Wood as Kai Parker. Sparkles Kat Graham as Bonnie Bennett. Sparkles Michael Trevino as Tyler Lockwood. Sparkles Alicia Silverstone as Zoelle Forbes. Sparkles Zach Roerig as Matt Donovan. Sparkles Sebastian Stan as Alaric Saltzman. Please note, all other cast members are credited for their original characters. As mentioned in my asterisk shield and scroll introduction, I changed the face claim for Alaric Saltzman. I do not own the Vampire Diaries or its characters. Full rights go to Sparkles L.J. Smith and Sparkles Julie Pleck. I only own the original characters, Katie Forbes and Zoelle Forbes. Warning trigger warnings. This story contains themes of self-harm and near-death experiences. And now, without further ado, welcome to Mystic Falls. Welcome to The Innocent Forbes. Chapter 1, Perfect Little Sister. Time day. Location, school hallways. Katie was at her locker putting her books away until she hears Bonnie's voice coming closer, and she turns around to face Bonnie and Elena as they walk to their locker. Bonnie looks at Elena. Major lack of male real estate. She looks over to Kelly. Look at the shower curtain on Kelly Beach. She looks, can I still say, tranny mess. Katie flinched at that from embarrassment. Elena shook her head. No, that's over. Katie whispers to herself, thank goodness. Bonnie scoffs. Find a man and coin a farce. It's a busy year. Bonnie looks over to Matt, and Elena looks confused for a moment before turning her gaze over to Matt, and she does a small wave, but Matt ignores it. Katie felt the tension ripple immediately, like a pulled thread. Elena's smile disappears before looking back at Bonnie. He hates me. Bonnie looks at Elena. That's not hate. That's, you dumped me, but I'm too cool to show it. But secretly I'm listening to Air Supply's greatest hits. Katie let out a quiet laugh at that before another female's voice cuts in. Elena, oh my God. Caroline ran to Elena and pulled her into a tight hug. How are you? Oh, it's so good to see you. Katie looks away as she shut her locker. Caroline looks straight at Bonnie. How is she? Is she good? Elena looks at Caroline. Caroline, I'm right here. Caroline turns to face Elena and smiles. Elena smiles back. And I'm fine, thank you. Caroline slowly pulls a confused face. Really? Elena nods. Yes, much better. Caroline pulls Elena into another hug. Oh, you poor thing. Katie stood off to the side, arms crossed loosely, gaze fixed on the lockers behind Caroline. She counted the dents in the metal instead of watching. Don't look, she told herself. Don't make it awkward. Elena couldn't speak clearly at how strong the grip is. Okay, Caroline. Caroline sighs as she lets go. Okay, see you guys later. Elena nods as she smiled. Okay, yeah. Caroline calls back to Elena and Bonnie, not even acknowledging Katie. Bye. Elena's smile slowly disappeared as she looks at Bonnie. No comment. I'm not gonna say anything. Zoelle appeared at Katie's side, smooth but quiet, like she materialized on purpose. She didn't look at Caroline, who just walked off. You ready? Zoelle asked softly. Katie nodded once. Yeah. They all started to walk in the opposite direction. After a while, Katie lingered near the lockers while Elena and Bonnie slowed to a stop ahead of her. Bonnie looks to her side and spots someone in the school's office. Hold up, who's this? Elena followed Bonnie's eyesight and notices the boy too. All I see is back. Bonnie's still looking at the boy. It's a hot back. Katie followed their gaze and she notices a boy at the office counter, turned away from them. Brown hair, straight posture, calm in a way that didn't quite fit into the chaos of the first day. He didn't look rushed or lost, just steady. Katie registered it, then looked away. She didn't linger on strangers, she'd learned better than that. Through the glass, Katie could see the secretary's frown. Your records are incomplete. You're missing immunization records, and we do insist on transcripts. Katie noticed the pause between the two, and she looks confused. Well, the secretary said after checking the files again. You're right, so it is. Katie's confusion deepened. Something felt off, but Bonnie's voice cut her out of her thoughts. I'm sensing Seattle, Bonnie says as she looks at the boy, and he plays the guitar. Elena does a little laugh. You're gonna run this psychic thing into the ground, huh? Bonnie nods as she smiles. Pretty much. Elena's gaze drifts from Bonnie to Jeremy, and her smile disappears. I'll be right back. Bonnie nods as she still stared, and she mutters to herself, Please be hot. Katie didn't join in. The pressure in her chest had returned. The feeling of being Caroline's perfect little sister weights heavy on her. I'm going to the bathroom, she muttered, already turning away, but no one stopped her. Time skip, girls' bathroom. The door swung open as Katie pushes it, and it closed behind her, cutting off the noise of the hallway. And everything went quiet. Katie locked herself into a stall and sat down, elbows resting on her knees. She stared at the tiled floor, breathing slowly until the buzzing in her head dulled. Just a minute, she told herself, just enough to get through the morning. She rolled her sleeve up slightly, movements careful, practiced. The marks there weren't new. They didn't shock her anymore. They were just evidence. This wasn't about wanting to hurt. It was about control, about making the chaos inside her small enough to manage. She focused on staying grounded, on keeping everything contained, on not going too far. When she finished, she cleared up quietly, thoroughly, like it was routine, like it was something she'd done before and would do again. She rolled her sleeve back down, then she opened the stall door as the bathroom's door opened, and she looks over to the woman who is in her late 30s, clipboard tucked under her arm, probably one of the teachers or guidance counselor or substitute. The woman looks over to Katie, then notices a shift in the mirror. The reflection of Katie, staring at the woman smirking with black eyes. After a while, the woman shook her head and told Katie, "Too much coffee." Katie looks at the woman confused for a moment, then she nodded before she leaves the bathroom and headed to class. Chapter 2, The Art of Disappearing. Time skip, class. Katie slipped into her seat near the back just as the bell finished ringing. She moved carefully, like sudden motions might give something away, even though there was nothing visible to see. Mr. Tanner speaks to the class. Once our home state of Virginia joined Confederacy in 1861, it created a tremendous amount of tension within the state. People in Virginia's Northwest had different ideas for those of the traditional Deep South. Katie rested her forearms on the desk, sleeves pulled down, posture deliberately neutral. She stared at the map on the wall without really seeing it. Union, Confederacy, division, figures. A few rows ahead, Elena shifted in her seat. Katie's gaze drifted forward just in time to catch Elena and the new guy, Stefan, exchanging look. Not obvious, just long enough to matter, and she notices Matt staring at them as well. Mr. Tanner kept talking. Bonnie grabbed her phone and she texts Elena, "Hottie staring at you." Elena checks her phone as it buzzed, and she does a little smile as she shook her head, then paid attention in class as Stefan stares at her. Katie noticed the way the air between them seemed charged, subtle, but there. Like something had already started and no one had bothered to announce it. Great, she thought to herself, another thing changing. She shifted in her chair, the motion small, grounding herself in the present. Desk, pen, notebook, Mr. Tanner's voice. No one looked at her too closely or asked where she'd been. No one noticed anything off. That was the point. Katie kept her eyes forward and her expression calm. letting the noise of the classroom wash over her until she felt steady enough to disappear into it. Whatever she was carrying stayed with her, silent, contained, and untouched by anyone else. Time skip, Mystic Grill. Katie slipped into one of the booths with Zoelle, the familiar noise of the grill wrapping around them, clinking glasses, low music, the hum of people pretending nothing ever changed in Mystic Falls, and she sees Jeremy walk over to Vicky. Jeremy smiles at her. Hey. Vicky didn't give him much attention. Working. Jeremy's smile disappeared as Vicky walks over to Matt and Tyler's table. Matt smiled. Thanks, Vic. Vicky looks at Tyler. Do you need another refill? Tyler looks at Vicky. I'd love one. Vicky smiles as she grabbed Tyler's glass, but before she does his refill, she walks over to Katie and Zoelle. Vicky looks at them. Do you guys want anything? Cola, food. Katie just shook her head, but Zoelle speaks up. Give us both some cola. Vicky nods. You got it. Katie watches Vicky leave, and she overhears Matt's conversation with Tyler. Matt looking at Tyler. Please tell me you're not hooking up with my sister. Tyler looks at Matt and shrugs his shoulder. I'm not hooking up with your sister. Matt rolls his eyes. You're such a dick. Katie didn't look up. She didn't need to. Jeremy walks over to Vicky as she starts the drinks. What's your deal? Summer, you act one way, school starts, and you can't be bothered. Vicky looks at Jeremy. Look, Jeremy, I appreciate the pharmaceuticals, but you can't keep following me like a lost puppy. Katie's jaw tightened slightly. She focused on Zoelle's sleeve instead of the argument. Jeremy looks confused. When's the last time you had sex with a puppy? Vicky shot back. Keep it down. I don't want to tell the world I deflowered Elena's kid brother. Katie flinched, not visibly, just internally. Jeremy shrugs his shoulders. And deflowered and deflowered. Vicky's slowly starting to get annoyed as she can't get any work done. We hooked up a few times in a drug haze. It's over. You gotta back off before you ruin things between me and Tyler. Jeremy rolls his eyes. Come on, the guy's a total douche. He only wants you for your ass. Vicky sighs as she looks at him. Yeah, what do you want me for? Katie exhaled slowly through her nose. This town, she thought, always too loud, always too much. The next second, the bell over the grill door jingled and Caroline and Bonnie walked in. Caroline looks at Bonnie as she speaks. His name is Stefan Salvatore. He lives with his uncle at the Salvatore boarding house. He hasn't lived here since he was a kid. Military family. They moved around a lot. He's a Gemini and his favorite color is blue. Bonnie looks confused. You got all of that in one day. Oh, please, Caroline said as she drinks her drink. I got all that between third and fourth period. We're planning a June wedding. Zoelle snorted under her breath, but Katie didn't react. After a while, Bonnie sat near Matt. Matt looks over to Bonnie. How's Elena doing? Bonnie looks at Matt. Her mom and dad died. How do you think? She's putting on a good face, but it's only been 4 months. Matt looks confused slightly. Has she said anything about me? Bonnie shakes her head. Oh no, so not getting in the middle. You can pick up the phone and call her. Matt shrugs his shoulders. I feel weird calling her. She broke up with me. Bonnie didn't know what else to say, so she comes out with, give it more time, Matt. Katie traced the edge of her napkin, grounding herself in the small, ordinary motion. The door opened again, and Elena and Stefan walked in. Matt looks over to them, then back at Bonnie. More time, huh? Bonnie just shrugged in embarrassment as Matt stood up and walks off over to them. Matt held out his hand. Hey, I'm Matt. Nice to meet you. Stefan shook Matt's hand. Hi, Stefan. Elena does a little smile to Matt. Hey. Matt looks over to Elena, but he doesn't smile. Hey. After a while, everyone is sat down. However, Katie is still at the booth she was at, not wanting to engage, but she could hear the conversation. Caroline looks at Stefan. So, you were born in Mystic Falls? Stefan nods. Ma'am, I moved when I was still young. Bonnie asks, parents? Stefan looks over to Bonnie. My parents passed away. Elena looks at Stefan with sadness in her eyes. I'm sorry, but the sadness changes to confusion. Any siblings? Stefan shakes his head. None that I talk to. I live with my uncle. Katie glanced up then, just briefly. Stefan was angled toward Elena, attention fixed on her. He didn't scan the room, didn't look around, didn't see Katie. Caroline looks at Elena, then back at Stefan. So, Stefan, if you're new here, you don't know about the party tomorrow. Bonnie smiles. It's a back-to-school thing at the falls. Stefan smiles before looking at Elena. Are you going? Bonnie cuts in before Elena had the chance to speak. Of course she is. Katie leaned back in the booth, expression neutral, invisible again. Zoelle glanced at her, reading what Katie wasn't saying. You want to go? Zoelle asked quietly. Katie shook her head. No. Zoelle nodded, no pressure. Elena looks over to Bonnie, then smiles as she tucks her hair behind her ear. Time skip history class, next day. Katie sat 2 rows behind Zoelle, close enough to feel grounded but far enough to stay unseen. Her notebook was open, pen resting across the page even though she hadn't written anything yet. Mr. Tanner paced slowly in front of the class. The Battle of Willow Creek took place at the end of the war, in our very own Mystic Falls. How many casualties resulted in this battle? Bonnie was busy writing in her notebook before Mr. Tanner calls on her and she looks up. A lot. I'm not sure, but like a whole lot. Mr. Tanner stares at Bonnie. Cute becomes dumb in an instant, Miss Bennett. Katie looks over to Bonnie as her smile slowly disappears. Mr. Tanner looks over to Matt. Mr. Donovan, would you like to take this opportunity to overcome your jock stereotype? Matt shook his head. It's okay, Mr. Tanner, I'm cool with it. A few students snickered, but Mr. Tanner wasn't pleased, and he looks over to Elena. Elena, surely you can enlighten us about one of the town's most historical events. Elena shook her head as well. I'm sorry, I don't know. Mr. Tanner looks at her. I was willing to be lenient last year for obvious reasons, Elena, but the personal excuses ended with summer break. Katie looks over to Elena and sees her expression fall, and something inside her wanted to snap, but she held on to it. Zoelle was watching the front of the room with her jaw tight, clearly displeased, but saying nothing. Stefan spoke up. There were 346 casualties, unless you're counting the local civilians. Everyone looks over to Stefan, and Mr. Tanner spoke up. That's correct, mister. Stefan didn't take his eyes off Tanner. Salvatore. Elena looks from Stefan to Tanner with a small smile on her face. Salvatore, Tanner repeated. Any relation to the original settlers here at Mystic Falls? Stefan nods slowly. Distant. Well, very good, Tanner said. Except, of course, there were no civilian casualties in this battle. Stefan spoke up again. Actually, there were 27, sir. Confederate soldiers fired on the church, believing it to be housing weapons. And they were wrong, it was a night of great loss. The room was completely silent now. Tanner stared at him as he slowly nodded. Katie didn't look at Stefan. She focused instead on Zoelle, who finally glanced back at her just for a second. A quiet check-in. Katie gave the smallest nod. I'm fine, it said. I'm still here. Zoelle looked at her for a moment before turning forward again. Stefan finished his words. The Founders' Archives are in Civil Hall if you'd like to brush up on your facts, Mr. Tanner. The class looks over to Stefan before back at Tanner. Katie looks down at her page again, staying quiet as the class continues. Then, after a while, the bell rang and everyone starts to leave. Chapter 3, Reflection Don't Blink. Time skip Forbes' house, before the party. Katie was in her room writing in her diary, talking about the party, everything that happened at the grill. Katie, a voice calls out to her. Katie looks up and she sees Zoelle at the door, and she puts her pen and diary down. Zoelle looks over to Katie. I know you said no, but I want you to come with me. You can stay by my side if you like. Katie thinks for a moment before nodding. Okay. Zoelle smiles. See you in the living room after you get ready. Katie does a little smile as Zoelle leaves, then she gets up and looks for something to wear. At the vanity, Katie was in the middle of brushing her hair and she hears Caroline's footsteps walk past. As Katie looks toward the door, her reflection once again didn't move like she did. It just stared at her before snapping back into place as Katie looks at the mirror. After getting dressed, Katie walks downstairs. She just saw Caroline leave for the party on her own and she sees Zoelle waiting for her. Zoelle sees her and she smiles. Ready. Katie breathes in and out to calm herself, and she nods before walking with Zoelle to the party. Time skip party in the woods. Katie hovered near the edge of the crowd, red cup untouched in her hand. Music pulsed through the cleaning, laughter bouncing off the trees near the falls. She wouldn't have come on her own. Just stay close, Zoelle murmured now, leaning in so only Katie could hear. We leave whenever you want. Katie nodded. That was enough. Across the clearing, Bonnie and Elena stood together, voice rising above the music. Bonnie looks at Elena. Just admit it, Elena. Elena sighs as she smiles. Okay, so he's a little pretty. Bonnie does a little smirk. He has that romance novel stare. Stefan looked deep into her eyes, piercing her very soul. Both Elena and Bonnie laugh, and Katie does a little smile, but she noticed Elena walking over to her. Hey, Elena said softly. Katie straightened slightly. Hey. Elena glanced at Zoelle to say thanks for brining her, before looking back at Katie. I'm glad you came. Katie shrugged her shoulders. Zoelle's idea. Zoelle smirked faintly, but said nothing. Elena smiled, a little sad but a little kind. If it gets too much, you don't have to stay. I know, Katie said. She meant more than just the party. Elena nodded. I'll see you around, okay? Okay. Elena hugs her before heading back toward Bonnie, and Katie does a little smile, and she looks over to Caroline and Stefan. Caroline smiles. Hey, you made it. Stefan does a little smile at her. I did. Caroline looks at him. Well, let's get you a drink. Stefan hesitates. Well, I'm. Caroline cuts in. Oh, come on. Katie watched Zoelle roll her eye. Called it, she muttered. However, with Bonnie and Elena. Bonnie looks around for Stefan. So, where he is. Elena looks around. I don't know. She looks at Bonnie. You tell me, you're the psychic one. Bonnie looks at her. Right, I forgot. Okay, give me a sec. Graham says I have to concentrate. Elena raises her hand. Wait, you need a crystal ball. Elena looks around before she zones on a bottle, and she grabs it and gives it to Bonnie. Ta-da! Bonnie scoffs as she smiles before grabbing the bottle, but she freezes as she looks at Elena. Elena looks confused. What? Bonnie lets go of the bottle. That was weird. When I touched you, I saw a crow. Elena looks more confused. What? Bonnie answers her question. A crow. There was fog, a man. She sees Elena looking away. I'm drunk, it's the drinking. There's nothing psychic about it. Elena didn't say anything, but Bonnie turns around as she says, Yeah, okay, I'm gonna get a refill. Elena looks more confused than before. Okay, Bonnie. She turns around and sees Stefan standing in front of her. Stefan looks at her. Hi. Elena chuckles to calm her nerves. Hi. Stefan notices the nerves. I did it again, didn't I? Elena nods as she smiles. Yeah. Stefan smiles back. I'm sorry. Katie watches the interaction, and she slowly starts to get a bad feeling, but she didn't know where the feeling was coming from. Stefan looks at Elena. You're upset about something. Elena shakes her head. Oh, no, it's just Bonnie, She stops for a moment before looking back at Stefan. You know what? Never mind, you're here. Stefan smiles. I'm here. Katie moves her gaze over to Vicky and Tyler, who leaves deeper in the woods, and she sees Jeremy watching before he put down his drink, and follows before she sees Elena and Stefan walk over to the bridge. After a while, she hears Jeremy yelling. Someone help. Katie's heart dropped as she sees Elena and Jeremy carrying Vicky. Matt looks over to Elena and Jeremy. Vicky, what the hell? Tyler runs toward them. What happened? Matt looks over to Tyler. Call an ambulance. Tyler looks around to people. Everybody back up, give her space. Elena checks Vicky. It's her neck, something bit her. She's losing a lot of blood. Both Matt and Katie noticed the way Stefan was starring before he disappeared, but none of them said anything. Katie sees the ambulance arrive, and she sees Vicky being loaded into it before Zoelle walks over to her and grabs her arm. Come on, we gotta go, Zoelle tells Katie, and she nods. Both Zoelle and Katie starts to head home. End of episode 1.